Been said that Her Majesty the Queen never really truly gave in to sort of personal feelings, you know. She kind of kept her counsel, her beeswax, as we often say. You know that phrase, don't you? It's an old-fashioned phrase where basically you didn't exactly reveal what your inner thoughts were. But as we often found out with our late and brilliant monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, she really did kind of give us a lot of clues along the way. And it's often been said that actually her favourite Prime Minister was her very first Prime Minister. And you can understand this, the brilliant, of course, Winston Churchill. Now, I think, this is only my personal opinion, but the reason behind that, I think, is that he gave her so much guidance following the death of her father. And I think that King George probably had that very parental, quiet word guiding her into, what was required moving forward in the future. But as we often find out in the fullness of time, as she very aptly said, Queen Elizabeth didn't necessarily get on with all of her prime ministers. And many people suspect the one that she least got on the best with was none other than this man. As ever, let me explain. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much for your time. It's difficult, isn't it, when you're in public life? You know all the stories in the world of show business. Two singers, two actors can't abide each other. But on screen or singing on stage, they have to emulate, of course, the fact that they think they're terrific. And normally the clue is this, when they say, I couldn't have done it without them, translated means, I can't stand the sight of them, but we're both doing very successful out of this play, or indeed film. That's the big clue. I've interviewed many people over the years, and that's the massive clue that comes away. When you're the monarch, it's a lot harder, because you can't really allow yourself to have these thoughts that are broadcast around the world. But as we've often seen with the Queen, just a sly look here and there, a downcast eye, and we know exactly how she felt. According to sources, the Prime Minister that she least got on with was not, in fact, the Right Honourable Mrs. Margaret Thatcher. They grew to understand each other and, in fact, became friends towards the end of lives. But it was actually this man, the Right Honourable Labour Party leader, Tony Blair. Now, Tony Blair thought he was a great sort of, mover and shaker. He was going to change the world. And I think for me, the pivotal moment was at the celebration concert where they were doing the Auld Lang Syne, and he suddenly had the Queen doing the movement for that. Terrible thing, really, to have the monarch having to do. Just didn't look right for the Queen. But this, I've been told, was the pivotal moment. Remember the decommissioning of the Royal Yacht Britannia. And this was really instigated by the Labour Party, the government of the time, and possibly one of the very rare occasions that we saw Queen Elizabeth shed a personal tear at the very final outing. Really cemented perhaps the truly dislike wasn't the really sort of bad, shall we say, portrayal of the Queen and Tony Blair in the Peter Morgan movie The Queen, which starred Dame Helen Mirren, but the fact that then Tony Blair said on record that that was one of the biggest mistakes that he made. Yes, right, so that must have sat very well with Her Majesty the Queen, you can understand. But what you're going to say is, yes, but then he had his own investiture and got honoured. I've been told that wouldn't necessarily have gone through had it not been, of course, the will of the people. So when you look back at the Queen and you say, well, who did she get on with? And I can say this because I've interviewed and met many prime ministers over the years. Having met Tony Blair himself, I would say that, yes, he's very good at the oily charm, as many people have noted. But that oily charm simply did not work with our brilliant monarch, Her Majesty the Queen. And the fact that he sent her very favourite royal pastime, the Royal Yacht Britannia, into oblivion was truly never forgiven. Neil Sean in the very heart of Yorkshire.